This is a demo of a general purpose open-ended probability calculator that I'm building. It's currently set up for calculation of the p-doom from AI. Yeah, I have my probability calculated at 0.30, 0.8, and this is a result of three sources. One, that there is AGI in the near future. Second, that it is misaligned. And third, that we lose control of a misaligned AI. And this probability here is based on the chance that all of these three things are true. And each of these can drill down further. If I look at the chance of AGI, I have this at 0.7655% chance that this is to happen. And again, this is just for demonstration purposes. The probability of there being AGI in the nearest future requires there to be either deep learning just scales as it is, there's some new breakthrough in the current paradigm, or there's a totally new methodology. If any one of these things happen, then we'd get AGI in the near future. And these further drill down to additional probabilities. But it doesn't go on forever. At some point, we bottom out, and I just give a subjective probability directly. So here that a 25% chance that deep learning just scales as it is, and then a 75% chance that there's some new breakthrough in the near future as opposed to like an AI winter or something, and then a 0.1% chance of a new methodology. So unlikely, but I'm not ruling it out. I can also apply some biases to each of these nodes. So there's a conjunctive bias. This is an unknown variable that must also be true for this end result to be true. As I lower this, then I can decrease the probability of this node. If I set it to 1, then the conjunctive bias has essentially no impact. So basically, this is saying there's some other variable that must also be true for AGI to be in sight. Disjunctive bias is the opposite. It's unknown variables that could alternatively make this node true. Its default set to 0, and as it goes up, the ending probability increases. I can use these biases to override all of my sources. So for example, if I were to say that the AI causing human extinction is just science fiction or whatever else, and I'm not really thinking about any sources that it can come from, I can say that with this calculator by just setting the conjunctive bias down to 0. So if some other thing needs to happen that has a 0% chance of happening, and I don't even know what it is, then obviously that shuts down all discussion and none of the sources matter. That's a very uninteresting argument, but it's one that one can make. Remember, this is a tool for expression. It's not something that you use to prove anything. It's just to get at what your opinions are in greater detail so that you can compare them with the opinions of others. Likewise, I could make this certain by just taking the disjunctive bias and setting it up to 1. So saying, well, there's something I haven't thought of that makes this definitely going to happen. Again, that's not very interesting, but it is something you say with the system. Because these break down, this works recursively. I could break down alignment as hard by simply creating a couple new sources. So things that must be true for alignment to be hard. For that, we could say AI is deceptive is one thing that can make alignment hard. Or another thing that could make it hard is, say, instrumental convergence is hard. Just a couple of ideas off the top of my head. And so then I take both of these, put them in, and then the next decision to make is this alignment is hard the intersection of these events? That means it requires all of them to be true, or does it just require one of them to be true? I would say that's a union of events. So then I would set the probability of each of these. Let's say I think the chance of AI being deceptive is pretty low. And then the chance of instrumental convergence is maybe even lower. But then there's also a fairly strong disjunctive bias where there's a lot of other things that could make this hard. So maybe I'll make this fairly high and I'll leave the conjunctive bias alone. And so now we have a different probability, but that's very dependent on this bias. As I lower it, it goes down to 0.4 just from these sources. That's something I added just now. I could add any number of nodes at any level. These same nodes could be used in different questions. So if I was thinking about something other than an AI going rogue, maybe I wanted to talk about the chance of it being used for a tyrannical government, and I wanted to take these same probabilities of some of these sources that I've already built and put those in there, then I can do that as well. If I were to take this project further, the main thing I would be to creating some just visual display, like a node graph of things feeding into each other and being able to work on it there. What I have here is just a simple calculator to explore whether it's worth pursuing this idea further. Thanks for listening, and feel free to ask if you have any questions or comments.